Yeah, okay, thank you so much for coming. We know this is one of the last sessions on the last day at the end of the last hall, but you're all here, you made it, we appreciate you. So just thank you in advance for your time. There we go. Okay, so e-learning, accountants, payroll. Who here thinks that sounds like fun? No one? Yeah, I know. So on the surface doesn't look that glamorous, but it turns out that for me, building e-learning for accountants to teach them payroll has really been the adventure of a lifetime. And it's these three things I think that sum up the origin story of Gusto Academy. So let's rewind just a little bit. I was hired to Gusto, there we go. I was hired to Gusto about 4 years ago to build our first ever certification program for our channel partners, which at Gusto, they're accountants. In case you haven't heard of Gusto, Gusto provides payroll, benefits, and HR to 300,000 small business clients and the 30,000 accountants who serve them. Gusto is a SaaS company, so it really matters that our channel partners and our direct customers feel confident using our technology. Now I have HR folks in the room. Payroll is incredibly complex. You might be able to relate to that. And that once they feel comfortable using our payroll product, that they go on to adopt the rich functionality that the rest of our platform has to offer. Next slide. So our company's great. I think we're kind of like the hipster payroll brand in this space. Our logos are kind of stored in them, but we're probably best known for our mascot, who's Penny the Pig. So who doesn't like payday? I think we all like payday. It's definitely the best 2 days of my month. And Penny walks across the street anytime you get paid. That's that. Okay, so the business problem that led to my original position being created was that adoption of our payroll product within the accountant channel was low. So to set in plainer terms, we were getting accountants joining our partner program and bringing on one client, but what we really wanted was to unlock scale through this channel and have them bring on 10, 15, 20 of their clients. So the hypothesis was that if we were able to train them to be more confident users of our payroll product, that adoption within the accounting channel would go up, and as a result, that would drive our company's annual recurring revenue, our ARR. So, thank you. For me, this just felt like absolutely the position of a lifetime. I couldn't believe that I did a sweet job to build out a certification program, just like payroll hipster company startup. So I got in, very excited to jump into the data, interview our customers, interview leadership. And I did that, and you know what I found out? That accountants really don't like people. In fact, on a scale of 1 to 10, payroll is probably about a 10. It is their least favorite service to offer. And as I started to dig into the why behind that, is that payroll is the sort of accounting adjacent specific service that they provide. So their customers come to them needing bookkeeping or tax prep services. We're all at the end of tax season. Maybe you filed your tax returns, maybe you were CPA, maybe you didn't. But yeah, that's what they're used to, and then clients are asking them, hey, can you also run my payroll? It's this complex thing that I don't want to be part of. Like, sure, I guess I can help you with your payroll. So they're doing it in a reactive way, as it means to not lose their clients, as opposed to leaning into payroll as a revenue driver for their firm. They actually saw it as a loss leader. So it's fair to say that that definitely knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit. Okay, now how am I going to build a payroll certification for accountants who really don't want to learn payroll? But as part of that early discovery process, I did unearth a few other insights. And that's that accountants care deeply about their career growth, they care deeply about business expansion, and they care deeply about client services. They are professional service providers. Their knowledge is their product. It is incredibly important to them to be skilled and savvy for firm leaders to know that their team is billable when they put them on a client account and that there's a baseline quality of service. And it's providing incredible client service that unlocks business expansion and career growth. And this is the discovery that really led to the start of Gusto Academy. Because what I realized is that we were going to have to break the rules to build a training program that would matter to our accountant customers, that they would engage in, and that would help them flip the script on how they were understanding their firm's revenue opportunity through payroll. So in other words, we had the daunting task of training them how to build a whole new practice line using payroll as a revenue driver and leveraging our technology in the process. So this means moving away from sort of clickety-click products training, if you will, and moving more towards thought leadership content rolled up in a certification program. And I realized that if we could do this right, that we would be able to elevate our certification program and later on our academy from sort of eat your vegetables, check the box type exercise to a true professional development milestone for our customers. So with all of that said, let me introduce myself. I'm Jacqueline, and I have the privilege of empowering our community. Oh, I forgot the funny side. Oh my gosh.
Most important part.
Most importantly, so if we fast forward to today, Gusto Academy has now certified 5,000 accountants. We've issued 15,000 CPE credits, and we've driven $1 million in incremental annual recurring revenue for Gusto. Yeah, not bad, right? So what do I mean by incremental ARR? What I mean by that is that this is ARR in addition to what we know they likely would have driven for our company. So this is ARR that's attributable to our education program. I definitely feel very proud of this slide. I'm very proud of the team that's behind Gusto Academy. Okay, so now let me introduce myself. I'm Jacqueline, and I have the privilege of empowering our community and education team at Gusto. I live in the Bay Area with my husband and our two beautiful girls. They're 4 and 7, so that's probably most of my time is spent either working or with my family. When I'm not with them or doing those things, I'm with my friends at Intellum. So Lizzie, let me pass it over to you.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Lizzie Shaw. I'm an enterprise account executive with Intellum. I'm actually an East Coaster based in Charleston, South Carolina. I also have 2 little ones. I was talking to somebody about that, all the swag going around and making sure I get 2 of everything. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I've been with Intellum about 2 years, and my role is really primarily focused on partnering with our existing customers and prospective customers. My typical day, I'm talking to customer education leaders, L&D practitioners, and we really learn a lot about what good looks like, but we also learn a lot about what great looks like. So the goal of today's session is to really, as Jacqueline mentioned, help you flip the script on your work and take things from good to great. So we're going to arm you with a framework that you can take in your day-to-day to start thinking about what's really going to drive business impact through your learning programs. If you're not familiar with Intellum,
I know our slides are being a little glitchy on us, so bear with us if they're building slowly.
I actually recognize a number of you stopping by the booth, but if you're not familiar with Intellum, we combine a modern, innovative education platform with a robust content authoring tool to deliver education at scale. We've actually been in the industry for about 22 years, and over that time, we've crafted this framework that really helps you create a compelling education initiative, laddering content with your learner goals, tying back to that business impact. So over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be digging into this framework. I'm going to give us kind of a high-level rundown of each pillar, talk a little bit more in theory, and then Jacqueline's going to dig into the practical and practice side of how they implemented in Gusto Academy. All right, so the first step is defining that business goal. So often we hear of companies that just dive right into creating content without any sort of clear business objective defined. And when that happens, training programs aren't going to produce the results that you're expecting. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? Just kind of not quite sure where to start? That's okay. We can help you out. The next piece, once you have that business goal defined and it's something that's measurable and relevant to your program, you're going to start to map those audiences to that business goal. So what audiences are going to impact you being able to move the needle on that business goal? The more you can understand about that audience is going to help you get smarter and more targeted in how you're managing that. And the next, we'll probably say this about every pillar, but arguably the most important is your content. So making sure your content's relevant and intentional and delivered in the way that your learners want to receive it. Once you have the foundational elements in place, it's time to market the heck out of your program. You got to drive people to the site, you got to get them to come back, consume your content, and so we'll be sharing some tidbits on how to approach an effective go-to-market strategy for training programs and how best to Academy achieve that. And lastly, you got to be able to measure the program so that you can then reinvest and demonstrate the impact that your programs are making towards that broader business objective. So let's start back at the beginning and think about our business goals. So we already talked a little bit about, everybody kind of starting blind. The other problem that we see quite often is that folks dive in, start creating content, but they haven't really stepped back to think, can education actually solve this business problem? So that's where it really matters to kind of dig into your, whether it's customers, partners, or employees, and understand how they're really going to use this to impact that business goal. We talked about these being specific, measurable, and relevant, so you want to make sure you have that in mind when you're establishing that.
Okay, should we do an exercise?
Now we've got a mix of folks in the room, so we're going to challenge you a little bit to maybe think outside the box. What I didn't share about Intellum is that we power programs that are both specific to internal L&D groups as well as external, so think about customers and partners using your products and services. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit, maybe turn to your neighbor, just think individually about what business goals might be relevant to your group. So whether you're a customer education leader or whether you're an internal L&D practitioner, what do you think might be a business goal that you could impact with your program?
Okay, we could go to the next slide. We can probably skip the next one.
Yeah.
We have some ideas, but you all already knocked it out of the park. So I don't know what's going on with our build, but on the left side, sorry. That's okay, you can keep it there. It's a great picture. You can just go ahead.
All right, everybody let's go.
Okay, so this is my kooky manager. His name's Will. I love him. This is a preview of some of the work that we did on set when we actually went to produce our content. But one of the questions he always asks me is, what's your money metric? Because I can't help but start thinking about Cardi B and how she makes money move, and if Cardi can do it, I can definitely do it. But his point is, how are the education and community programs our team is building either driving revenue for the company or saving revenue for the company? And if I can't clearly articulate how I'm making money move, it's time to go back to the drawing board. Can you go to the next slide? So in the case of Gusto Academy, we talked about this a little bit. The business problem in front of all of us in the revenue org was, how can we drive annual recurring revenue, ARRs, to our campus channel? And the discovery process that I went through likely feels quite familiar to the professionals that are in this room, which is to go about inquiring what are the knowledge, skills, and confidence gaps that are blocking our partners from adopting payroll with more of their book of business. So what I like about framing this discovery exercise in terms of how can we enable them to drive more ARR, there's all sorts of things that we could train them on. There's really interesting subject matter that they would benefit from. But do we have a right to win in that space? And is there that Venn diagram where we can drive impact for both our business and our customers? So I'll let you take it away with the next part of the framework.
All right, so as I mentioned, once you've got your business goal set, you've got to start to think about which audiences can actually impact that business goal. So again, probably another way to kind of reframe and think in your own industries, in your own markets, what that might mean to you. But to help break it down to kind of think about, or kind of compare to how we think about it, you've got your audience segment, so kind of that broad level, whether it's customers, partners, or employees, and then more granular thinking about those learner personas. And the more you can know and learn about those different audience variations, you can really start to deliver the right content to the right learner at the right time in their career or in their customer journey. I'm sure most of you in here are familiar with learner personas, but just to level set there, learner personas are more of your kind of prototypes of groups of learners that share common characteristics. So it could be job responsibilities, motivations, training goals, skills required to use your product effectively. And so as you start to bucket those together and start to think about, again, what they need to learn to move the needle in the business impact, you need to start to think about relevance in your content and what's going to drive that behavior change to get them where they need to be.
So building learner personas was a really important outcome of the discovery process that my team went through, and we were able to chart out within an accounting firm who needs to learn what and when, and how does that line up with the overall customer journey with Gusto. So what we discovered was that there are 3 learner personas. There's the accountant, so this is analogous to the more entry-level IC who needs to learn hard technical skills. Then we have advisors, so middle management, who's doing slightly more sophisticated value-added work. And then our executives, so in our case, that's for leaders who's thinking more at the revenue impact level for their firm. So we identified these 3 personas, and then we mapped out their career stage, their jobs to be done, their learning motivations, their preferred modality, or what's in it for me. And what this enabled us to do was a few things. First, it gave my team a shared language to think about who are we building for, when, and why. And it also helped us garner cross-functional alignment and buy-in in the programs that we were building because we could clearly articulate internally, again, how we're going to work cross-functionally to deliver the right learning at the right time to the right person. So if you could go to the next slide. Here's a screenshot of Gusto Academy. So another slick outcome of mapping out our learner personas is that we were then able to use this framework as the architectural backbone of our academy. So we're going to create learning tracks for our various learner personas. So we have payroll essentials for accountants and bookkeepers, people advisory for advisors, and practice management for firm leaders. And what this sort of organizational framework has enabled us to do is really create a broader narrative for Gusto about how we're investing in our partners' professional development. Because they can go deep into the learning track of their choosing and really build up their skill set in, say, payroll. And then they can go broad and advance into the next more advanced track to grow in their career. And what gets me really fired up about this framework is that in addition to sort of mapping to our customers' professional journey, it also maps to our buyer's journey, our customer journey. Partners start, they need to learn the essentials, and then we need to nurture them to become more advanced all the way to the point in which they are advocates for our brand. So it's also really helped us from a marketing perspective. Okay, should we move on to the next part of our framework? Let's do it. Go ahead.
All right, I talked about this being arguably the most important, which of course makes it the hardest thing to achieve, other than getting measurement, but we'll talk about that later. So I mentioned day-to-day I'm speaking with various customer education leaders and L&D practitioners, and literally everybody I talk to has a content problem. They either have too much or too little. What they do have is at like 8 different places. They've got marketing, running webinars over here, sales enablement, creating their ad hoc PDFs and wikis or whatever over here, reference material, lives with support. They're writing some like legacy learning courses floating around somewhere, but essentially what that gives you is a siloed approach to content that's not cohesive and not tying back to that business objective. And so we talked about relevant content, but there are other 2 critical pieces of your content. One is thinking about the modality, so how are we going to deliver this training? And the other is content efficacy, Jacqueline's favorite word. How effective is that content? So when I challenge you to kind of think about that, and that's what I love about Gusto's programs, not only was the audience so well thought out, but the content strategy behind how they were going to deliver and how they were going to measure and track the efficacy of the content.
Yeah, and I like how with this framework, one thing leads to the next. So your strategy is helping you define your audience, which helps you stay crisp with your content. There we go. Okay, so I'll speak a bit to modality within the context of a revenue organization and how I have personally come to think about it. So the way I framed it up internally is e-learning drives breadth, whereas instructor-led training gives you depth. One allows you to enable lots of people to learn asynchronously at their own pace, whereas the other really allows you to go deep and create a sticky learning experience for the folks who are in that class. So if you go to the next slide, an example of this is an e-learning program that we've provided to great success is Gusto Payroll Certification. This is the foundational certification that we push almost all of our new partners to within their first 90 days of joining our partner program. So that means there's a high volume of learners coming through. This is quite a technical skill. It's heads down. We want them to engage with the product and to really think deeply about the taxes and compliance bits that I won't bore anyone in this room about. I did my best to forget all of it. So e-learning was a great fit. We needed to achieve breadth. We needed this technical skill. I can also say, hey, we can invest a lot of production costs into building a beautiful e-learning because look at the volume of learners who are going to come through. On the other hand, with our instructor-led training, here's a screenshot of what we call Gusto Academy Day. So it's in advance for the user conference, and we do some VILTs. I hate the acronym VILT, but this is an ILT, so this is a proper ILT. We actually had a live instructor who was sourced from our community of accountants. But the way that I think about ILTs is who within my customer base do I need to go deep with? Okay, that's not my way, but people advisors or the firm leaders. There's a smaller volume of them because they're deeper into their customer journey with Gusto. And at that stage of their career, they're really looking for peer-based learning. You know, they don't really have time for e-learning at that stage of their growth and development. They're looking for anecdotes and stories from a teacher. They're looking to their peers for inspiration. How did you do that? I just want to do this. So for us, I can justify internally the cost of investing in an instructor-led training because then I can track the impact of the smaller volume of folks who are in the room who are likely going to go on to do bigger, better things than what our e-learning allows us to achieve. But then we have the breadth to balance it out. Okay, so that's modality. Now I'll move on to actual content efficacy. So these are some of my favorite tactics that we use within our e-learning programs that I think make the learning both delightful and sticky. So the first is what we've dubbed talent videos. Talent videos is an actual talking head talent to camera. This is great to teach conceptual ideas and frameworks that don't change. It's not easy to update these kinds of videos, right? So these are much better for conceptual evergreen concepts than they are for, say, teaching product training, especially if you're at a SaaS company like myself and your product changes daily. Plus, using talent videos, if you're teaching bone-dry content like payroll, really serve to humanize the overall learning experience. Learners can immediately put a face to a concept. Okay, next up are product simulations. So with Gusto Academy, we've partnered with Intellum also to use their LMS as well as to use Evolve, which is the content authoring tool. And one of the features that I really like in Evolve is called product simulations, because we can actually simulate sort of a happy path in product experience within the flow of the e-learning to give our learners that hands-on kinesthetic experience, simulating how they'll actually interact with the product. So again, great for e-learning, great for that IC level of training for us. And now they can't just sit back and watch all of our great talent videos. They actually have to do something. All right, next are workbooks. I think I came out saying everything's my favorite, but I love workbooks. Okay, why do I love workbooks? Workbooks foster moments of reflection. So there's nothing fancy about workbooks. These are literally just downloadable, editable PDFs that we offer as the very first thing in our e-learning. So we prompt our learners to download these. And then as they move through the course, we ask them to reflect on, hey, who are the first 3 clients they're going to go talk to about this new thing we just learned? And when I think back to the business level goal, which is driving ARR, what workbooks then tee up our learners to do is have a follow-up conversation with their account manager, who's been trained up on the content that's in the workbooks, to keep that learner accountable to what they committed to during the learning process.
I think too, Jacqueline, that could very easily be transferable to like an internal coaching and development where you're having a one-on-one with them and you're like, hey, that was your reflection point in that course, are you tracking towards those goals? So.
Absolutely. We've also leveraged workbooks in our community programs. So we have office hours type programs, we have meetups, bring your workbook. It's this concrete artifact that they can feel proud of coming out of the program, talk to their peers about, talk to their account manager. And to Lizzie's point, this is a very easy tactic to adopt, no matter who your learners are. Okay, and the last thing are customer stories. So customer stories are another one of my favorites because they enable us to deliver contextual storytelling. So what we've done is, as part of all of our different learning programs, we got to do this big shoot. We invited a number of our partners into the studio and asked them to tell the story, not about Gusto, not about how they're using the product, but the impact that they've achieved for their career and their firm as a result of having partnered with Gusto, as a result of having thought differently about the payroll opportunity at their firm. So the other thing about customer stories is I found that lots of times new concepts feel scarier than they actually are. So being able to point to examples of like, hey, so-and-so adopted it in this way makes this thing we're trying to teach feel so much more accessible. Oh, you do that, I can do it. Now, because I sit in the marketing department, one of the sort of slicker things I was able to do, which I highly recommend if you're creating customer stories for your E&E programs, is partner with other folks on our marketing team to scope in during the pre-production phase, hey, how can we create two distinct sets of deliverables from the singular shoot? Deliverable set A are the storytelling videos that we'll embed in our e-learning and our Evolve courses. And deliverable set B are sort of social optimized clips of these same montages that we can now sprinkle on social, on YouTube, on our website to promote the actual training program. And not even so much to promote the training. Who cares about Gusto payroll certification? What matters is that Gusto is signaling to our community that we're invested in their professional development, that we're more than just another SaaS tech provider. We're a partner. And we do have Gusto Academy that we're sending them to. So customer stories, incredibly valuable. If you don't have a big budget, consider doing this over Zoom. No big deal, just check your audio quality.
Okay, so as we talked about, every education program should be treated like a product, meaning it should have a really well thought out go-to-market plan. I know a lot of you in here probably drive a lot towards required learning, but a lot of the groups we work with, it's all self-elected. They are not required to take it, so we have to find ways to get them in and get them to back. When you think about marketing a program, there's typically, you're good, 3 core parts of any effective go-to-market strategy. You've got your launch plan, you've got your awareness building, and you've got your engagement tactics. So I had the pleasure of attending Gusto Academy's launch last fall, and so it was great to see that kind of firsthand. When you're thinking about a launch plan, there are a couple of things you want to incorporate into that plan. One is taking that work you did to already identify your audiences and think about those different segments. Then you want to make it a specific value prop for those different segments, and then you want to give them reasons to come back and reasons to re-engage with that.
Okay, so with Gusto Academy and our launch, to Lizzie's point, I framed it up internally for, at this point, months, that Gusto Academy is a content product. This is a core way in which Gusto is going to deliver value to our accountants. Accountants are going to sign up for our partner program as a result of having heard about Gusto Academy. So I threw my hat in the ring to announce Gusto Academy at our annual user conference. It's called Gusto Next. We do it every year. And this was that tentpole moment in which we're able to announce the program, raise awareness about it, and then start weaving this narrative of professional development into all of our go-to-market, top-of-funnel activities. Now, you may not have an annual user conference that's conveniently coming up within a few months of your program's launch, but I challenge you to think about, is there a moment at your company's all hands where you can present about your program? Are there upcoming department all hands? And you can take your program on a roadshow to start building internal awareness and buy-in about what you've built. So there's different ways to do this in different contexts, but it's quite a galvanizing moment to be able to do this, and it also builds that internal and external momentum for your program. Okay, but launches are obviously just a singular moment in time. So the next bit is awareness. How do you continue to build awareness? So I'll let Lizzie take it away.
All right, so we've launched. Now we've got to get people there. Just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come. So how do you make it discoverable? How do you make sure you're using effective channels to continue to promote and make announcements around the cool things you're doing around the site? A couple of other things that are helpful and that we found are really critical in driving that awareness and adoption is making sure that your user feels enabled. They need to know where to go to find support if they're having trouble navigating the courseware or the platform. And they need to know where to find the content that's tailored for them. So the more you can communicate and drive them and enable them to make effective use of the tools at their disposal, the more success you'll see around awareness and adoption.
So at Gusto Academy, I thought about this in two different buckets. This is sort of a goofy picture of myself and one of my teammates in a big whiteboarding session. I'm like, okay, how are we going to weave this into all of the different stakeholders, what have you? So we ended up coming up with two different buckets. Bucket A was the internal enablement piece. In the same way you may enable your sales and customer care teams when you launch a new product, we also enable them with Gusto Academy. Again, this is a content product that we built. I wanted our sales team to be able to speak crisply about, with prospects, why they should partner with Gusto and how we're going to support them over the course of their journey with us. And then when they're talking to actual customers, who should take what program and when, and how that will benefit them at every level of the firm. Also working very closely with our care team to get them to understand, hey, here's when you send folks to the help center, here's when you send them to Gusto Academy, and here's when you send them to work one-to-one with their account manager. So at that point, I have 1,000 trained advocates across the country, I wish, across the company who are talking about Gusto Academy in a way that's contextual and at the learner's point of view. The other big bucket was thinking more specifically within the marketing team, how do I weave the value of Gusto Academy across our marketing funnel, building web pages, talking about it in webinars and ebooks, and making sure that all of our different channel teams are starting to weave in this story and the narrative of professional development. And I would say if there's only one team in your marketing department that you can work with, I would recommend the lifecycle marketing team. At Gusto, this is the team that's responsible for building email nurtures, all of our in-product touch points. And what was nice about having them the upstream work of mapping out those learner personas is that I could then influence our lifecycle marketing team to say, hey, you already built this email nurture that goes out to our new partners. Can you add in a bullet about Gusto Academy, Gusto Payroll certification for the new partners? I think it'll help you with your click rate. Okay, all right, I'll do it for you. But I got a yes, right? Whereas if I tried to convince them to build a whole net new nurture, then of course I would have gotten a no. So those are the two big buckets of things I'd recommend. How do you do internal enablement, and then how do you work with your marketing team, specifically lifecycle marketing, to weave your content offering into programs that already exist?
All right, so the last step is thinking about your engagement tactics. So we talked a lot about relevance, getting the right content to the right learner at the right time. There's got to be a reason, and they've got to feel like the learning's made for them. So whatever you can do to personalize that experience is really should be top of mind. So thinking about how you get that learner to the content that they're looking for as quickly and easily as possible. At Intellum, we see that drive high degree of engagement if the learner comes and feels like the experience is tailored to them. You also want to think about ways to continue to notify and maybe drive announcements of new content, new releases, friendly nudges of like, hey, we started this, come back, finish, complete your course, we're here for you. Get them coming back in, consuming content. And then other things like gamification, which are a little bit more fun and competitive ways to incentivize learners for maybe more elective programs. Being in sales, we're all a little bit competitive, so the more you can kind of demonstrate your skill level, be more of a subject matter expert and build that reputation against your peers, really helps you build that credibility. So think about adding fun, gamified experiences to your learning programs to give those learners a reason to come back.
So completely agree with all of the points Lizzie made. And to add to that, so going back to this idea of creating customer stories, think about how you can engage the community, whether that's an internal community or an external community, for them to talk about the program. And not even the program, again, forget about the program, who cares about the certifications, for them to talk about the impact that that program's had on their professional life, on their career growth, on their business expansion, on their client service. So I've done this in a few ways, of course, sort of did it during the big shoot, but also I've just gone on with people after the fact, hey, what did you learn? How are you applying this? Captured it on Zoom, captured it up as a testimonial video, dripped it out on my social feed. Over the longer term, have created case studies on the impact of Gusto Academy and its programs on our different firms. And what I like about taking this more community influencer-based approach is that then it's not me-centric, It's not me talking about how great Gusto Academy is, it's our community talking about how great Gusto Academy is, and it just drives more traffic into our top of funnel. So it's all one positive cycle.
All right, who remembers the last pillar? That's time. Yeah.
Yeah,
nice. All right. So we're here, and how will we measure success? So we talked about metrics that matter, those money metrics, and tying those back to real business impact. At Intellum, we think about metrics really in 3 different categories. So you've got your engagement metrics, your effectiveness metrics, and your impact metrics. When you think about engagement metrics, it's basically learner engagement and how are you measuring that. Typically that's through things like the number of registrations, enrollments, or completions of any given learning activity, course, event. Most platforms do this, or they should, if they're good at what they do, allowing you to track those kind of really basic metrics to understand that base level of engagement in your programs. As you move to more kind of mature levels of performance measurement, you start to look at things like content effectiveness or efficacy of those programs. Typically those metrics are more around like assessment scores, learner feedback surveys, even finding ways to measure that behavior change. Someone had mentioned that earlier about that being challenging to understand how that's put into practice. But when we think about effectiveness metrics, we're thinking about how effective is that content in driving that behavior change. And then of course you reach your pinnacle of being able to measure impact. Impact, what we mean by that is outcomes, ROI of that program, and how you're correlating what's happening in the learning program with those business objectives. This is a tough one for sure, and it's really hard to drive that correlation sometimes. It often requires mirroring data from your learning system with other business data to really drive that 360-degree view. But Jacqueline's going to share with us a framework within the framework, mind-blowing, to kind of help you think about how you can stair-step your approach to performance measurement and kind of tie it back to that impact typical.
Okay, there is a lot going on in this slide, but here's a little bit of backstory we talk about what's actually in the slide. There is this incredible data scientist at Gusto. Her name is Shannon Gates. I have a world of admiration for Shannon. She's probably 10 times smarter than anybody else at the company. And she found that a lot of product leaders, so PMs, were coming to her saying, how do I prove the value of all of this engineering time that went into building a product and tell the story to leadership about how my new feature, my new product is driving impact for the company? So she built up this framework called an impact platter. And I sort of kind of influenced her, maybe through giving her a lot of swag and Uber Eats vouchers that I had access to through the marketing department, to adopt her impact platter framework for me and education for Gusto Academy. So the concept behind the impact platter framework is that impact sits at the very top rung of your ladder. And in order to get to impact, you have to climb up each consecutive rung. And there's a causal connection in between each rung, so you can feel confident that if you can clearly track what's happening on the bottom rungs of your ladder, that eventually you'll be able to tell the story at the very top, which takes time and is a little bit messy. So if you orient to what's going on the very right of this slide, you'll see the different stair steps within our impact ladder. So first is discoverability, which is kind of like a no-brainer. If people don't know your solution exists, you're never going to get to impact, right? They first have to be aware of the solution that you're offering for some sort of pain point that they're providing or experiencing. Great, they've discovered the academy. Now that they're in it, I need to make sure that they're engaging. Are they taking, engaging, and completing the programs? And to Lizzie's point, this is pretty darn easy to pull from your native metrics of whatever LMS you're using. So, and I typically look on this more on a P&L basis, right? Month over month, how many people are completing the certification program. Great, they've completed it. Now, just because they completed, I don't know, maybe they wanted it for the badge they could put on social or the certificate or their manager told them to. What I really want to know is, was the program relevant to them? Was there resonance? Again, not very hard to track. In fact, in Gusto Academy, we've used Intellum's native survey feature. Just require a 5-question survey as a part of the course completion criteria. It's the same 5 questions we ask across all of our programs on a scale of 1 to 10. How relevant was this program to you? on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you think you're going to adopt what you learn? Etc. So again, we're climbing up higher in the ladder. Kind of figuring out, all right, are these programs actually relevant? Next is that behavior change piece. So this is what all of us are so passionate about in this room, right? Just because it's relevant, okay, now X% of those learners are actually going to change their behavior as a result of having taken this program. This gets a little bit tricky to measure, and to Lizzie's point, you probably do have to marry various data sets. Maybe you have access to a BI tool like Tableau or Looker or what have you, or you can, I don't know, influence your marketing person to give you swag so that you can give it to your BI person, whatever you need to do. So for us, we use median indicators. I look at, is there a correlation of, do our certified partners have a decrease in care tickets? Do we see an increase in their NPS score? Are we starting to see some impacts of behavior change? And now we're at the tippity top of our impact ladder, which is as a result of that behavior change, are our partners now able to either provide a richer service to the clients who are already on Gusto, or go out and acquire net new clients to bring onto Gusto because they're more confident, trained, and skilled using their product. And that's the ARR of it. So what I like about this is, truth be told, I got pretty roasted in my early days at Gusto. I'm like, oh, our certified partners are totally outperforming non-certified partners. Like, that's correlative. It's not causal. How can you claim that? And in hindsight, what I realized I was doing is I was taking one of the bottom level rungs of my ladder and saying, oh, can't you see that it's driving this top level impact? So what this impact ladder has allowed me to do internally is tell a much more cohesive story about how one rung leads to the next, leads to the next. And do you know what I found out? Do you know what sits at the top of our impact ladder? Is that certified partners outperform non-certified partners by 40%. They're 40% more productive in our partner program. But now when I get pressed on that metric, why were they 40% more productive? I can tell the full story. So not bad, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, we made it. So to sum it up, our 5 steps are defining your business goals, defining your audience, mapping your content, creating an effective go-to-market strategy, and then finding the tools in which to measure your performance and demonstrate impact. I saw a lot of head nods and a lot of note-taking, so I think a lot of you are probably doing some of these, but not all of these. So hopefully this helps bring it all together, give you that model to take back to your teams and really help them understand where to focus their efforts. I think we were gonna try and do a demo, but I think we're short on time. So y'all saw some screenshots. We'd be happy to spend more time with you one-on-one if you want to share your business card. We'd love to hear your feedback around this and how you're using parts of the framework and how you plan to use it going forward.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your story, what resonated, what didn't resonate, what feels applicable to you. I always love connecting with folks in the community. I think if Lizzie can show our, you can also get a ton more resources. We did a series called The Making of Gusto Academy, which tells the full behind-the-scenes story of how this came to be. It's a bit of a personal, professional journey. I don't know. None of the things I'm talking about happened overnight. This has been a 4-year journey in the making. I've cried multiple times. You can ask my husband. It definitely hasn't been easy, but I've learned a lot in the process. So happy to share anything that feels relevant and resonates to you. Could you grab the LinkedIn?
Yeah.
So please do feel free to share for the rest of your interview. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well,